Peace be with you. I wanted to make another video about addiction this morning because it is such a powerful emotion that it really cannot be understated. I think right now more young people die from addiction in America than young people of the coronavirus. Not all people, but just young people. More people die from addiction in America than young people from the coronavirus. So we are actually losing people in the prime of their life. They're not old, they're not unhealthy like the coronavirus, most of the coronavirus victims. They're in the prime of their life. These are the most, whether we want to admit it or not, these are the most valued members of society because these are the people that build things and maintain things. Or they can make everything much harder through theft and immorality. So addiction is that serious. It is that serious. It is an epidemic worse than coronavirus. God is destroying us. Actually, God is not destroying us. We are destroying ourselves because we are trying these substances, even though God warns us about them in the Quran. In the Quran, it says, "O you who believe, intoxicants and gambling and altar setup and dividing by arrows are abominations of the devil. Avoid them, that you may be successful. Surely the devil is only trying to introduce hatred and animosity among you by means of intoxicants and gambling, and to keep you away from prayer and to cause you to forget about God. Will you not then stop?" And then this ends with basically, it says that the messenger's duty is only to deliver, and be careful what you do. All of us are told at some point that we shouldn't try drugs, but we don't believe it. But we even have, okay, I understand not believing your parents or being curious or whatever, but not believing God. And a lot of us are stupid to try it, and then you fight that temptation for the rest of your life. If you like it that much, that will, with long enough period of time, the temptation is going to be very manageable, but you will always crave it. And even when you quit, chances are you're going to relapse several times. You just have to be, you have to control those relapses, and the only way you can control them is prayer, observing prayer. Personal experience. Otherwise, it runs away. It is very, very difficult to quit drugs because drugs are basically, when we try drugs, we agree to try mind control from the devil. Even though God warns us what the devil is trying to do to us with them. But we agree with the devil to try it because he tells us it's cool, nothing's going to happen. We're just so naive. Think about how naive young people are. They're not stupid, they're just naive. They believe everything. So we have to teach them to believe God. When God tells them this, they should really, really, really heed this warning, because drugs are the worst epidemic among young people. It's very dangerous. And the more widespread this is, the more dangerous it is. And the devil is not only coming at these young people through dealers, in the ghettos, in poverty areas, he's also coming through to them through doctors. Do you not understand the significance of the statement that doctors had a great contribution in opioid epidemic because they overprescribed opioids? It's not that they wanted to addict people what they did is they provided an excuse and an opportunity for people to try opioids. It doesn't matter how you get addicted. If you use opioids in a situation that is not appropriate, the feeling is not going to be of pain relief, but of euphoria. So you may like it. If you take it at the right time, to where it makes you feel like you like it, you may try to do it again and again and again, and that is addiction. That is addiction. So it's very important to focus a lot of efforts as communities to educating the children about dangers of drugs, and this includes working with former addicts to really demonstrate the devastation. But not only that, but to also raise the children with the Quran. And not only that we are practicing it, so they can see that we are practicing it. Because we should be practicing it. Because although not all of us may be addicted, nobody's perfect. Everybody needs to improve on something. Because what God wants in the Quran is just behavior we would want from each other. Like just an example, respecting your parents. You know what, man? If you disrespected my parents in front of me for no reason whatsoever, you know, I'm not the baddest man on the planet, but I would not take that lightly. Nobody would. But we give ourselves the right to say as much as, oof, you know, these gestures of annoyance. And God tells us that's not allowed. But we're so full of ourselves. Do we think that we have the right to behave like that to people who taught us to wipe our own ass, or wash our own ass, or feed ourselves, or any of the basic tasks that we require to learn to survive, in addition to endless stream of food and water and entertainment. And then when we become strong enough, we give ourselves that right. This is just an example, because you know, for the longest period of time, I didn't really understand you know, why God includes not saying oof to your parents as part of wisdom, and why God includes you know, this verse about parents as a part of the Sirat al-Mustaqim, the straight path, what we all pray to walk on, whoever does pray and recites the Surah Fatiha. But then when you have children, you realize, wow, they sure as hell did a lot, man. You know? And then you have remorse for what you did. Also personal experience. It's very important to believe God, especially with something as dangerous as addiction. It's just that important. The only way people can protect their kids from addiction is if they have the financial means and the luck, I guess, to place their kids where addiction is not such a big problem. You got to understand that addiction is like it's like corona. It's contagious. You don't become an addict unless you run across an addict, or somebody, or a dealer, or somebody that is going to provide you the opportunity, or you are unlucky enough to be treated by a doctor who will prescribe you, for example, now it's Adderall, it's not even opioids anymore, who will prescribe you Adderall because you want to try it, because you heard it's good for studying, or it's good for this, or it's good for that. It's just not a stimulant. And many people who wouldn't otherwise drive to a crack house and get some meth are now going to expose themselves to a stimulant because they don't have to drive themselves to a crack house and get meth. And that is the issue with these substances. So the only way, what I would do, what I am going to do, is before I move, I'm going to try to research like the drug related offenses in the school district where my kids are going to go. You know, things like that. I don't know if I can research that, but that is one intervention that I will, God willing, as a parent do. It's a it's an infectious disease. It's like coronavirus. You know what? If there's an outbreak of the coronavirus in a school, nothing is going to happen. The kids are vast majority of the kids, like less than 1 in 100,000. You know how many full schools is 100,000 kids? If there is an outbreak of the coronavirus, less than 1 in 100,000 kids is going to die. If there is an outbreak of addiction, if the drug rates in a school are high, many more children are going to die than they would from the coronavirus. So why don't you vaccinate them against addiction? How do you do that? Live like a Muslim. And I don't mean this Arabic version of foreign something culture. Culture and religion are not the same. That was the first thing I realized when I read the Quran. God wants you to be modest. He doesn't care how you look. He doesn't care what language you speak. God created us from a man and a woman, but then make us different tribes and nations that we may know each other. So you know your family. But the greatest among any of us are those who are most careful of our duty to God. Those who are most successful in their jihad or the struggle to improve their behavior, so they're not liars, they're not cheats, they're not whatever. They're moral people who are the only way that heaven can exist is if it's inhabited with such people, basically. So that's the only way. You gotta teach people what Islam is, because it's submission to God. It is Christianity. It is all of that. Without the dogma, Islam and Christianity are essentially the same. Christianity has a little bit more rules. Actually, it has much harsher rules, except through time, the adherence to those rules was lessened and lessened and lessened and lessened until there was nothing left. Until there was nothing left. Jesus would be horrified at the state of Christianity today, just like Muhammad would be horrified at the state of Islam today. You got churches celebrating fornication, adultery, homosexuality. Churches. In a book that condemns. So they read a book that condemns it, and then they celebrate it. It's not just hypocrisy, that is blatant hypocrisy. You think these people are right with God? It's not enough to do whatever you want to do, but you want to say that God is okay with it, even though it plainly says that God is not okay with it. That is hypocrisy to the nth degree. That is true hypocrisy. For these people, it's nothing but hell. In any case, they started about addiction. That is the easiest way for the devil to do all of this to us, to ruin us like this, to ruin our personal lives, to ruin our communities, to ruin even for the people who are not addicts, you got to realize that your kids are not safe from that. They're just not. And if you send them in a school district with a high prevalence of drug use, you may regret that, because it is worse than if you were sending them to a school with a high incidence of COVID. Because it's worse. And the devil uses drugs to keep us away from prayer. Therefore, it should be very obvious that prayer is the antidote to drugs. And no matter what you do, even if you pray, it's not going to be easy to quit drugs. There are going to be relapses, more than likely. But if you are lucky enough to survive your relapse, if you are, for example, an opioid user, then if you just keep up prayer as a Muslim, you still have a chance. As long as you don't abandon prayer, it's not over. Once you abandon prayer, it's over. Good luck. But along those same lines, God says, all you who believe, do not approach prayer until you're intoxicated, until you know what you're saying. Until you know what you are saying. So God doesn't condemn us for it. God tells us that we need to come back. That we need to come back. In a book that says that prayer is the most important thing, it defines a Muslim as those who pray. There's only one place. So in a book that invites us to pray from many different angles, basically tells us that we have to pray. In one instance forbids prayer, and that is intoxicants. And that is how the devil approaches us. So the devil gets a weapon to entice us with, and then we get to decide. And then the Quran tells us, messenger's duty is only to warn you. God knows what you do. So that's it. If you're an addict, I would say you need to pray, just like we all need to pray, no matter what your addiction is, because none of it leads to anything good. So, good luck to everybody.